what you would have to do, I would assume, yeah, it's getting pretty scattered up here. What you'd have to do is, and I'm sure you did, but you'd have to go in with that, if it's got how dark was the gray background?
It was weird because it was kind of a gradient, but not too dark.
Yeah, great. So did you go in and paint it out with your black and white tools in the overlay mode?
Yeah, for just around the edges. I did that.
Yeah,
too.
part of the problem with that might be, no, it shouldn't be. When you get that, especially if it's a gradient, you got to go in with your levels and get it as knocked out as you can. That's where the battle starts. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, another thing I might do, I mean, I'd have to see the original file. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like, email me after the class, the original file. I'd like to look at it and see if I can come up with a solution for it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Because I like that kind of stuff, because then we can go, okay, well, if you have this, you know, I mean, it has its limitations like anything else, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But I'm guessing if it's more of a mid-value gray, you should be able to knock it out. So email it to me.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Do it after class, and I'll because that way I can not eat a bunch of class time, and I'll talk about it Monday. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's not terrible, but it's starting to get, you know, flyaway stuff in here where it's starting to pixelate a little bit. And it'll be good for me because it's fun to have I like trying to untangle these things. Who else? Anybody? I don't see anything, especially with the brushes, everything looks pretty good. What I want to go over today is the reactive stuff. We're going to watch a video. I think it's just like 10 minutes. Hey, Irene.
Yeah.
Where is Kevin?
She's still looking for work right now.
Did she get her bachelor's? I can't remember.
I think she has a bachelor's, but she like finished up the program here and then she's looking for a job, but you know, it's kind of hard right now.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens just in general, not just with design or whatever, but with just the whole corporate America, because everybody's like, it's really weird up here. We're getting just like this huge influx of people because they're going, hey, we want to get out of the city or whatever. And it's interesting because I think what they're saying is, like, right now I could probably sell my house for 100,000 over market value. I just don't want to. You know, I think they're basing that on, oh, I'm going to work remotely, but I don't believe that's going to carry through after this is over. I think some companies will, but I think a lot of them won't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of silly, to be honest. Like, if the work can be done, then why wouldn't you want to be at home and do it remotely?
Well, I think it really depends on the person. I think if you're talking about professionals and stuff, that might work. I worked in like really non-professional jobs before I did that, and warehouses and all that kind of stuff. You couldn't have those people work. I mean, I know they have to physically be there, but they would not work out at home. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I mean, like entertainment jobs where we're drawing and stuff like that.
See, this is the other thing. It's like people who haven't worked in the industry don't understand this. Kind of need to be in, I think, all in the room together and tossing out ideas and that sort of daily creative environment you're in is, I think it's important. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because people go, oh, I could do it at home. It's like you're working in a vacuum. Like most of my career, I worked in-house. And then when I did freelance stuff, like I only did freelance stuff for like 2 or 3 years. I didn't like that vacuum I was in. I didn't know what was going on in the office. I didn't know what anybody's point of view was. I didn't know what anybody was doing. I didn't know how I was plugging into the work. I wasn't seeing the work on a daily basis. You know what I mean?
You don't think like Zoom or using like online
Again, it's
communication?
like every time I hear people saying that, there's a certain part of me that goes, you've never worked in the industry, because that doesn't make sense. Now, some of that can work if you have, because there's always been freelance, but like a place like Pixar, a place like Disney, you need to be in the building. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
This, like, what are you going to be all disconnected? And then it's not the same. You're in a daily, at Pixar, you go in there, there's a big open area. There's a kitchen over there, and everybody's kind of flowing around. They have a cereal bar. People run into each other. They're talking about what they're doing. They're showing each other drawings. It's just this interaction, this creative interaction that you need. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hopefully I'll find out soon.
And I also think that there's just in corporate America in general, not necessarily the creative world or whatever, but there's a system of middle management that those people like being in charge, and they like being in the room and going, you need to do this and you need to do that. And that's what makes them feel like they're in charge. And the middle management is not going to want to give that up. You know what I mean?
I hate that though. I hate it.
That part I hate. And I think a lot of that corporate stuff like that, it could be done at home. Totally.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Who's this? This is Tang. Where you at?
Yeah.
You got a real hard edge here.
Yeah. I had some trouble around the hairline.
So what did you have problems with? What was this on a white background or what?
Yeah, I used their gray. Yeah, white background.
Okay, so you got to get it, because it doesn't look like it was a channel selection. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay.
It feels like, let me see. I mean, I don't know, because this is a JPEG and that's fine. But it doesn't feel like a channel selection. It feels like it was just like erased out or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So you got to balance that initial masking of the hair and everything. You got to get it dialed in with your levels right off the bat as far as you can. And then and then maybe you need to go in with your black and white brush on overlay or something like that and start to knock out things, and get them to read in there. Because you don't want to, the whole point of this is you want to get all those little wispy hairs and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
I still had some trouble with getting all the strands and stuff.
Yeah. Again, send me the original file and then I'll look at those, and then I can talk to them on Monday. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if I said this, you guys. Have you guys seen that? I don't know if it was in this class. Have you guys seen that they're going to have a study space on campus on March 10th? It's going to be in the cafeteria. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk to the dean and see if I can hijack that a little bit and come and maybe do some sketch groups in there. I mean, if they're there anyway, why can't I? Right? I'm sick of this isolated stuff. I don't mind teaching online, it's fine, but I prefer being on campus, obviously, right?
Mike, why wouldn't they let us do figure drawing if they're going to let us do the cafeteria thing?
I don't know. That's why I'm like, I want to hijack it, and it's bothering me because I'm getting worried about, because right now, from what I've heard, it sounds like we're going to be on campus in fall. But then,
oh, really?
That's what okay, that's not official or anything. Theater and music has been decimated by this whole thing. Okay. Their numbers are horrible. Okay. Ours haven't been too bad. So I think John, because John comes out of theater, the dean, he's like, I want to get on campus, man. He goes, all these people are going to start going to other colleges and making other, changing their behavior. And I agree with him. And also you're looking at all the way out in fall. So by then it seems to me like, but then I'm starting to see teachers who are resisting that, which is really bothering me. And they're, oh, well, are we going to get a filtration system and all this? It's like, damn well, we're not going to get a filtration system. And if you throw that out there and throw that out there to the union or something as a health issue, we're never going to get open. You know what I mean? Because that's going to cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. And it would take like a year easily to get that done. That's insane. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want to get on campus. I'm sick of this crap. I like being on campus. It's just like what I just talked about, the interaction, that daily interaction with the students, that fun, creative environment you're in. where you run into students in the hallway and they go, hey, look at this drawing. You go, hey, cool. And you hey, put a piece of trace over and go, you could try this, you know. That flow of ideas and just in the moment discussions around technique and all that stuff, you can't have that on Zoom. You can do a lot of stuff on Zoom, but you can't do that. Does that make sense?
No.
And then you're just sitting, I sit in my office all day. I'm on campus basically all week from, I don't know, 8 in the morning till 10 at night. So I'm always available. You know what I mean? Because clearly I have no life. Okay.
Well, your house is up in Big Bear, so.
Okay, so, all right. So you guys got through that okay, everybody, correct?
I have some difficulty, but I'm not sure I am following.
What? Okay, so what do we have? Hey, let me find it.
Enrique, yeah, because when I trying to make the alpha channel, it creates something different. I don't know what doesn't get the.
Okay, you probably did the same thing. You probably hit the wrong button. Okay, because I'm finding that because I do the same thing, and I'm finding it now with students do the same thing. I always think it's just me. Where's your stuff? I know I saw it.
Manrique, yeah, here or.
Wait, I know I saw this. Oh, here it is. God, I got such like a. I don't know if it's a dyslexia. I think it's a dyslexia problem. You talking about this one?
Yes, that one.
Well, it looks like you separated it pretty good.
No, it is the original file. This is the original file.
Oh, this is the original?
Yeah, this is the original file, yeah.
So let's go here. Oh, you already have an alpha.
I was trying to do, but definitely I couldn't make the separation between the background and the.
Well, the first thing you got to do, like we talked about, is you got to find.
Yeah, it was at the green one, I guess. No, red. I don't. Yeah, green one was the best.
Blue, actually. This one gives me a little more contrast between the background, which I like.
Right.
Here's where it's going to be a little tricky. Hang on. I'm going to try this one. I want to make a selection. And then I got to go here. And I always get this confused too.
But that is the black. That is the real one. Yeah.
You got to save selection as channel. Now see how that gives me that?
Right.
Because if I don't do that, if I go to the wrong, oops. If I go to the wrong channel, let's get rid of this. And I go here, which I do all the time, it gives me that.
Right, it's true.
Okay, I have to start. And you have to make a selection too. You just have to select that and then go new channel. I think, see, I'm still all confused. See, that's create new channel, which you would think that's what you want to do. But I want to go create new channel as selection. And that gives me that.
Right.
And then I can deselect it. And then what I start, then the first thing I want to do.
Oh, okay, you have to deselect that one, right? Okay.
Yeah, I deselect it. Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's only going to affect what's selected. Anytime you select something, you can only work inside of that selection, or it's only going to affect that selection.
Okay.
So then I'm going to go to here.
Right, because it gives me a different, yeah, probably because I didn't deselect.
So this is starting to give me something pretty good here. If I go to the dark, but I don't want to, I got to dial it in so that hair, I don't lose that delicacy of the hair. And this is only, you know, this is going to get me so far with this. Oops. Now I want to get that background knocked out. And then I usually, if it's this big area here, I'm just going to take a regular brush.
Right. Okay.
Oops. I'm going to take a regular brush. Because this part, it's not going to, the interior is not going to be that tricky. What the hell is, I got to move that up. I'm just going to do a hard brush right now. And all this interior stuff, I'm just going to knock out. I'm just going to paint out. Because I don't need that. And then I'm just going to, all this stuff in here that's easy, I'm just going to knock that out. All the way to here, how close I can get. Probably in here. And let's see if I can. Now I'm going to put it on overlay and see if I can get this to work. So it's not too bad because it's not really digging into the white there, because that's why I have it on overlay. Oops, I don't want it there. Yeah, that's it. You know, and now I've got a pretty decent selection, right?
Okay. Yeah. Mhm.
Oops. And then I would just load it into my thing. Hang on. That's my channels. And I'm going to invert it. So I got that selection. Go here. And now I knocked it out.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
You got to make the selection in channels. Okay. And it's going to select the whole channel. So usually I invert it so it just goes to the shape of the head. And then I always, again, I put in my mid value. And there's all the fringing. Right?
Right. Mhm.
So now what do? We go here. I want to make a new layer. And then option, make a clipping mask. Go to my, whatever you call it, my, what do you call it? Clone stamp tool.
Clone stamp.
Then I'm just going to grab whatever's closest and start painting this stuff in.
Right. Cool. Yeah. Mhm.
And I might go, if I need to, I might, oh, it is undarkened, so it's fine. Sometimes I do that darken thing and sometimes I don't. And like, I don't like that little bit of halo there, so I might go back to my selection again and see if I can. I'm going to take this off darken for a second. I picked up some of the flesh tone there. I like it better not on darken right now because it's not so intense. So it's a little better. If I needed to, I would go in. Yeah, that's not bad. That's actually not bad. So the darken in this case was making a little too much. It was getting too dark. So if you see now, I can get it pretty believable. So it's all these little wispy hairs and things we want to get here. So I'd go back here because there's a little bit of halo there because I used the darken. So sometimes, you know, there's no, you know, there's a way of doing this that we're doing it, but I don't want to just rely on a formula and go, oh, I always use darken, because sometimes it's just a little too much.
You're cloning the hair. Is it better to have a lower opacity?
Sometimes, yeah. Well, right now I'm on 58. So yes, usually it is. And I'd say that's usually with your tools in general. Like if I'm clone stamping something, just in general, I'm usually, I have it knocked down because I want to build it up. And the same thing even when I'm painting or anything, I usually don't have everything on 100% usually. Sometimes I do, but. So you guys can see if I put it on this mid-value grade, it's going to show me if I have white fringing, darker fringing. It's just going to give me a mid-value to gauge against. Oops. And so now we got it pretty dialed in now. What we're starting to. Now we got a pretty clean selection, correct?
Yeah, thank you.
So it's probably, I'm guessing, grabbing that, you might have hit the wrong button. I do that because I don't sit around and do this all the time. So when I go to show you guys how to do it, a lot of I did it the other, like last week in class, I kept hitting the wrong button.
Right.
So it's new, I think it's new channel from selection, I think it is. It looks like the layer mask thing. Okay, any other ones?
I didn't really have trouble on mine. I think it's convincing enough, but her hair kind of had like a gradient where the ends were lighter. And when I did the clone, it ended up making the ends darker. I don't know if, I mean, I tried to select the lighter parts, but when I did, it didn't get rid of the fringe as much. So then I ended up selecting the darker parts, but then it changed the color.
You might try lighten too. You might try doing the lighten overlay. You might try that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start talking about these brushes we talked about a little bit. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, so we did the stamp brush. Everybody got that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. I always think it's weird that everybody thinks that's such a big deal because it's very simple. Okay, so let's go here. Wow, this thing is still exporting. Hang on. Wow. Let me grab this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you this sort of how to start to play with this. And all I'm going to ask you to do over the weekend is play with it. Okay. In certain classes, I'll have people like start to create things out of it and stuff like that. But everybody in here is not an illustrator, so I don't really want to lean on them like that. If you want to start playing with it in that way, that's great too. So let's go here. I'm going to make it. Oh, I got it. So I'm going to go through our same routine that we've gone through. I'm going to come up here. I'm just going to make a simple, nah, that's not good. Let me get a better brush. I'm just going to make a 1. I'm going to move this up.
Mike, is there a way to like
No.
save the brush? So
You do
no,
what?
you listen. So I said, is there a way to save the brush so it's not like 5,000, like the size isn't 5,000 automatically? To have it just be like, let's say like 1,000.
You could just start the image smaller.
Okay.
But when you just brought up a point, when you make these, or it's going to be actually with these brushes we're about to do. So forget that. The ones we're going to do, we're going to have to do what I was just going to say. Okay. So let me switch brushes. I don't think I need these Halloween images anymore. No, I don't. So let's go. And let me switch brushes. I got my general brush. Yeah, that's better. Or actually, I'm gonna do it like that. Okay. Let's go here. Grab my good brush. Okay, so I'm just gonna make this. Let's try that. I'm going to do our usual routine. I'm going to go here, edit, define brush preset. I'm going to call it hair. I'm just going to delete it. And there it is. Okay, so that's what we'll have, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at my favorite drawing brush right here, which I just found on one of the computers, I don't know who made it. If I click that, if you look up here, it's a feather. See that? Can you guys see that? It's a feather. So that's what it was created from, obviously, right? But what you're going to get here, where's my hair now? Right here, is you're going to get this. Now, let's look at this. Let's go. Now we're going to go to our, where did I put it? Brush settings, okay? Not brushes. That's somewhere, where I don't know where it is. Hang on. Right here. That's just our brushes. That's basically the same panel you have up here. Okay, you're going to notice, probably already noticing that Photoshop, all these programs, they have the same information in different places, right? Yeah?
Yes.
So here's your, this is your control bar, obviously. It just gives you quick access to your most common tools in that. If I want to dig into it a little more, then over here is my, I don't even know if there is that much more in here. I could do the fly out menu here, you know, and all this stuff, okay? So it's just, you know, that's the actual window for it. But I'm going here to, not that one, brush settings right here, okay? And what I'm going to do here, there's a couple things I can do here. There's also going to be things you're going to notice in here. It's so annoying. Hang on. There. Certain things you're going to notice in here that won't affect the brush you're on because it'll affect other brushes you make. So it's just that kind of thing. Okay. So don't worry about that too much. So here's some of my tools right here. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do too is goes brush shape. So right here, I can change the angle of this brush. So on and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I can go up here and now and go to, look, spacing. So now I'm starting to get that. I could tighten that up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, the size of the brush, the angle, oops, the angle, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, where it gets interesting is I go drop to the next one and I go right here in the middle where it says control, I'm going to go direction. And now this brush is now following the direction of my hand. Does that make sense?
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And now I can come in here and go, let's adjust this. Let's go back up to brush. I'm going to make this bigger just so it's easier to see. Let's go to shape dynamics. Look at, I can jitter it up a little bit where it's a little more random. You see that?
Yeah.
But it's still following my hand, right? And then let's go size jitter. Let's get it a little tighter. Let's go, what else can we do? Roundness jitter. And jitter just usually means it's going to kind of random it up a little bit. Let's go to scattering. So now I can scatter it out. So that I might use this as a texture brush on like a landscape and just kind of throw it in there a little bit so it looks like a little bit of grass in there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now I dial it in a little more than that. Here's the count. So that's the density of the brush. And again, I can get a little bit of randomness in there, or I could go back to shape dynamics probably and go, I don't want so much jitter on it. But let's go back to scattering, count jitter. That's just gonna, you know, you can see these are all just, this pulls it out a little more, makes it a little less dense. Let's go to, I think this one this one I don't usually use, but that doesn't mean it's not good. I'm gonna go to transfer, and you can see how the transfer blows off the edges of it, so it's not so harsh. See that?
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of fades a little bit. I like that one. Opacity jitter, so it just goes a little more opaque, less opaque. This is building out a little more.
You could use that brush for when we draw your beard.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, you can. That's exactly the kind of thing you can use for. You use for all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of this, what you see when you see these really super detailed out, which I'll show you right after this. These really super detailed out digital paintings, they're using this technique usually, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what that one does. So that just adjusts all that. What's another one I use? I don't know if I use brush pose, I can't remember.
When you're digital painting, how often do you make new brushes for your project?
For me, I don't very often. What I'll do is I'll go, oh, I could kind of use a nice texture brush here. And if it's not something I have, I'll make one. You know what I mean? Or if I was going to do fur or something like that, I'd probably make one. But
Okay.
I tend to paint a different way. I tend to paint like a painter, which means I like to like paint the same way I paint with oil paint or something, you know. Now that does, and then maybe I'll use that brush to kind of dance over it a little bit. because I tend to like to mask the forms and get a more painterly look. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't use them. I do. Or especially if I'm doing foliage, man, I'll mask the foliage out and then I'll make a leaf shape based on my own stuff. And then I'll dance that leaf shape around. Okay, so let's look at. See, now I've randomized it. Now, another thing, when you get one you like, you have to go, where is it? New brush preset, and then hair, and I'll name it something, and hit OK. And that's actually going to save the brush with these new presets. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if I don't, it's just going to save it the way I started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have to tell it, save this new brush preset and give it a name, right? Because it gives it that random number or whatever. I don't know if that's the brush size. I don't know what that is. So let's go back. See if I can do this again. So let's make a different one. So that's hair. I'm not going to go too into hair because I got a video I'll show you, and I think it's really effective. Let's do. Go up here. Let's try this. So let's go. Let's just try one. Define brush preset, scale. I'll delete it. Now I got that. So let's try playing with this a little bit. I'm going to leave it just, I'm not going to mess with the brush tip, I don't think. Let's see. Yeah. Go scattering. I don't want that many. I don't want them overlapping. So I want to go, let's go to scatter. Or let's go to, I want to random them up a little bit. There, that's better. And I'm going to go to, I don't usually use texture. Color dynamics. Now, what you can also do, and he'll talk about it in the video, you can set these up so they get a little bit of color variation. Let's see what we got. So what I could start to use something like this for is maybe scales on a dragon or a lizard or something. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then I could paint this over. Let's say I am painting this, and I'm going to go a little bigger now. So you get closer. You know, and I'd take some out probably. I'd really adjust this brush. Might take some out so I don't have too much uniformity. And then if I had this going over like a dragon or whatever, or it could be cobblestones in the street. You know, if I did this, if I go up to my, let's shrink this a little bit. If I go up to my edit, transform, perspective, you know, I could lay this across the ground like that and start to get cobblestones. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Could be a little bit of texture I dance over a wall. And then if I was putting it on and I'll talk more, we're going to get into this tool a little more later, but it's still under we talked about it a little under warp. I might take warp and start to wrap this around the body of my creature. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So then it starts to get a little bit of a sort of a texture wrapping idea, right? Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
So let's take this now. And then again, if I want to save it, I've got to really save it out of my flyout menu here and save new brush preset. Okay, so let's get rid of this. And then to Irene's point, oh, I lost my layer. Hang on. I'm going to do this. Let's try this. Get rid of that. Randoming it up a little bit. I'm going to go to transfer. That gives me that little bit of fall off on it, which I like. And then I could create my beard or my fro or curly hair or whatever. Does that make sense?
That is a very unkept beard.
Yeah, I told you my girlfriend just made me shave mine off.
Did she really?
I was telling, she had a couple glasses of wine. She's like, shave that thing off. Okay, but see how we can create that? And then I can come in here and I could go bigger, get different things. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how that's a huge time saver, correct?
Yeah.
It's also how a lot of things are getting done that you think they're doing by individual and they're not. Okay. You can pretty much rest assured that most things that you see that are crazy like that, there is in the digital environment. And there's some tool that's been created to accommodate for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to put a little video on here. I think it's about 10 minutes, which he shows really how he's using this. As Paul is saying, is a really great designer and illustrator. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I will play this and then I will come back.
Mike, why do you have a Pokemon on your desktop?
Where?
The Mega Swampert.
Oh, because I use it as a drawing exercise in Illustrator.
Oh.
Because it's the right. I always tell my classes I could care less about Pokemon. As a matter of fact, I don't like any of that. But it was the right combination of not too complex a drawing, not a great drawing, not a horrible drawing, and then we make it a great drawing, and then we render it, right?
Okay.
So we render it so it looks really 3D'd out, but we do it in Illustrator.
Okay.
Hang on. Okay, so I'm going to start this, and I'll come back in after it's over, yeah?
Sounds good.
Okay, so now what the trick with all this is, so that's a very useful technique, correct?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some other ones, because I saw this like years ago. Hang on, I'm looking at the chat. Was it lagging a little bit, the video?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so what I always do anyway, hang on, is I'm going to put that, I'll link that on our canvas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I found out in
Yeah,
YouTube,
that way you can watch it again if you want.
in YouTube. It is in YouTube.
One of the things you got to look at is when he talks about when he switches the fur from one side to the other, how he has to kind of dial it in, not, flip the axis and then still dial it in a little bit. And he goes, I never quite know. I don't either. Like I've never found just I just have to sort of roll that brush, the first brush setting, roll it into the right space and then flip the axis. And then I can find it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're just constantly testing it.
Yeah, it's weird that it doesn't. There should be a thing where I can go, okay, I've got this, just like he was doing, where I got this sort of this fur breaking that edge, where I could just go, whatever the command is, just go bink, and it flips over the other way, but it just doesn't work that way. And like a friend of mine, I just saw her, I think she teaches high school art or something. And she's been making these videos. And one of them I just saw where she's drawing or painting a horse. It's so stiff and like shiny looking that it's like you need to go in and break up that edge a little bit. You need to go in and soften some of the edges, and then things like where animals and stuff like that, where their elbows do that. Well, a lot of times the furs, like dogs will do it, with the furs laying over this. Well, the fur doesn't necessarily always conform like that. Where they break like that, you'll see some hair there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Or on a curved back, you know what I mean? Like, all those kind of things. A cat, bends their back like that to stretch. All of a sudden, you'll see that serrated edge of the fur, right? So I'm looking for little places where I can do that. I don't want to soften all the edges of it because then it's going to look stupid the other way. But I also don't want it to be, a hard edge everywhere because it's an animal with fur, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing he says in there that I don't agree with, and he's a good painter, traditional painter, so he knows. He was just talking about, I think, in relation to what he's doing. And he goes, anybody who's a traditional painter knows I'd have to go in and do this with a paint every hair. And it's like, no, you go in and mass it, and then you trick the eye into thinking they're seeing all that. I think what he was saying is if I wanted to do this exact effect with paint, I'd kind of have to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd probably, if it was me doing it, we're going to get more into like bushes and all that kind of stuff. Oh, by the way, Jordan.
Yes.
Let me see if I can remember where this is. Hang on.
Oh, you found it?
Yeah. Hang on. Let me see if I still remember how to do that. I mean, it's pretty simple. But there's a function in here. What is that? Okay, so the brush thing, what I'm going to want you guys to do this weekend is just play with it. Yeah?
Sounds good.
Locking back into my, hang on. Ugh. Nothing's working on here. What's going on here?
I submitted a new picture as well.
Yeah, I saw it. That's what I'm trying to find here. What did I do? What did I do here? The computer's flipping out for some reason.
Did you give it your sickness?
Did I get what?
Did you give it your sickness?
Probably. Is this the one you sent me, Jordan? This is it, right?
That was from last time, but I sent you one, but
Okay. Hang
work.
on. No, I saw it. Oh, it's probably here. Yeah. Oops. This one.
Yes.
So one thing that's in here, let's see if I can make a new layer. Something I should talk about later, but it's really not a big deal. Let's go to render. So if you look here in render, it's going to give me this dialog box, right?
That's nice. Yeah.
Here's my light direction. It's weird. It's not. I got a bunch of different. Oh, hang on. It's thinking. So I can dial in that light direction. This is an oak. Never stops thinking. I've got all these other trees in here, right? Amount of leaves. Leaf size.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, and then branches. Let's see, height. Let's see, I don't know what this one does. That's good. Branches thickness. Let's see what happens there. That's not bad. And I'm going to go. I might even go, maybe pull this bigger and just like we talked about, maybe I'll just have one here or something, right?
Right.
I can also take these. Here on this ground here, I might, so if you're doing this and you got this starting point, I can take this, I could make 2 or 3 trees if I wanted to. But another thing I might do is I might go, maybe flip it. Maybe even stretch it a little bit or skinny it up or whatever. And then this. Now these selections are or these spaces are so clean that I can probably get away with using tools I usually wouldn't in this case. Like
okay.
Maybe this. Oops, that's weird. Hang on. Go back here. Or maybe even here. And I'm going to invert this selection, turn my tree back on. And then go delete. Now I got a tree behind that building, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Then I might go, one other thing I would do for sure here, maybe it's just, let's see if we can just take this color right here and go to, I'm going to put it on a new layer. I'm going to put this on color dodge. Let's see what this does. Oh shit, I probably have to get in the same layer. Which I don't know. So if I do that, I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm just going to see if this will work. So I'll make this and turn this one off. That way I'm saving that. And there's a couple different ways I could do this non-destructively if I want. I don't want that brush. I want. It's going darker, which it shouldn't, which is kind of weird. Let's go overlay. Oh, it's on overlay. Okay, so wait a minute. Let's get rid of this on the layer. I don't want it on the layer anymore. But that's normal. So let's go to color dodge. Now see how what it's doing is, yeah, it's lightening it up, but it's adding a little bit of color to it. So it's not just going lighter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or I might do this. Which is probably actually what I would do. is I might just take this shape here, put it on a new layer, which I already have, I think. Yeah. Let's put this brush back, get rid of color dodge, go normal. Make a quick selection here. On these, I want to select the front, oops. I want to select the front facing planes. Because for me, and I'm just going to do this sloppy so you'll get the point. For me, the idea of warmth and all that of light when I'm doing, when you're presenting something like this, I think it's really important. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
I mean, again, we've talked about this. You get all these really cold renderings, which I don't know, I'm just not very fond of. Then I'll dial this in. It's too cool. I want a warm yellow. And then let's try, I'm going to go to the transparent to nothing, whatever you call it, gradient. I'm going to pull that. Do our usual routine where I'm going to go, can I, oops, am I on the right layer? I'm on the wrong layer, hang on. I want an empty layer, so this one. And then I'm going to see if I can find, like, say it's a little bit sunsetty. Let's see if I can find an overlay that looks okay there. That's on color dodge. Let's let it through. Wait a minute. I don't like, let's do it one more time. I don't want this to start on an overlay. I'm going to start normal. And now I'll see if I can find an overlay that lays it in there nice. And if I can't, like even that might work if I pull it down. I might just start warming that up a little bit, so the front facing part is really getting a little bit of warmth, right?
Yeah. No, it's definitely the next step for my projects. It looks good.
Yeah, and then another thing you can do, by the way, is let's say, and I'll give you these. I'll give everybody these. Okay, everybody got my smudge brushes, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's go. Let's try this. Okay, let's look at 2 or 3 different ways to do this. Let's go to my brushes. Because what I like talking about this for is this is a good example of using the tools we've already used now and putting them into use, correct?
Yes.
Because it's important, okay? I mean, if I don't do that, then I'm not teaching you guys anything, okay? Let's go, let's take my smudge brushes, the ones I just gave you guys, because they're really important to me for painting. I'll get into that a little more later. So let's go to these smudge brushes. Now, I'm going to go to this one. I like this one a lot. I don't want it to be too big. Now, see what's going on this lawn, how it's very uniform?
Yeah.
So I might come in with my, let's go back to my little layer. Again, here's my save layer in case I want to keep an eye on it. It's too big. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. I want to break this up a little bit so it's not, let's do a couple things here. I'm going to add a little bit of that same warmth to this. Let's go back. Let's find it. Here it is, right there. Actually, and I'm going to push this into the green area a little bit. Really knock it down. That's too much. I just want a different something in there. Let's start with this green. I'm just going to push it up a little bit, a little more yellow. Now, the only reason I'm doing that is because like a lawn or whatever isn't perfectly uniform, correct?
Yeah.
You can see just doing that, how much it helps it. Can you see that?
No, yeah, it does.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my smudge tool. This is the impressionistic blender. I'm going to give that another. What do these lines here represent? They're not really there, right?
No, no, I can erase them.
I wouldn't even erase them. I just smudge them out like that because why? It gives it another value in there that starts to make it feel a little more natural, right?
Yeah.
So that's giving it a little bit of a dark value. That's all right. And the other thing I might do here, let's make a quick, actually, let's use this. Let's go general, oh no. This is why I have some of these brushes in here. Here's another one that's cool. Let's get a texture first. So right here, under my grut brushes, by the way, I've made some brushes in here for foliage and things like that. So my grut brushes are, where do they go? I'm just going to look for something that has an interesting texture to it. I don't like that. And I'm going to go sample my color again. I don't like that one. Want a little bigger statement here. Let's see. Now, if I was working on this as a project, any brush that I started using like that I liked, I would put it in, put it in my favorites, for the project, or I put it under foliage or whatever. Let's see what this looks like. No, like that. Let me find a good one. I'm just looking for a chalk or a texture. That's not too bad. Yeah, that's pretty good. See, I'm just giving it a texture on there a little bit. Yeah. See that?
It looks more definitely looks more illustrated. What about for the building itself? Like, how could you make that effect as well?
The what?
Because the grass is starting to look more realistic, more like more painted, more or even colored. But compared to the building, it's you can kind of see how it's different.
Yeah, because you're going to go, like I would take this brush now and I would go right here at the base. I'd start adding, I'd break up the base here a little bit. That's a little too much, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Because this is going to get covered a little bit with the grass. So that's going to soften it up a little bit. For sure, and sort of here, I don't need to do a whole lot of it either. For sure here, I want to break it up a little. That's a little too much, but you get the point. I drag it over, not, and this might be just like that maybe. And start to soften up those edges a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, I could come in here and go, like, to your point, like, where can I, I'm going to go into a different set of brushes. So these are, where are they here? So in here, down here, if you go ink washes watercolor, I've got this one, it's 80, this one, 80%. And I could probably just start to find places where I can, I don't know, maybe it's a little reflected light, or I could start to kind of break this up a little bit with some little bit of brushwork kind of things. Just a little. I don't need to do all that much to it. Does that make sense? That's too much.
Yeah.
I'll pull that down a little bit. You don't want to obscure that. Or I find an overlay that works really nice on that. For sure here, what is that made out of? Is that brick?
Brick.
So, okay, so I might go like this. Let's try it with a watercolor. I don't know if that'll work. I'm going to pull this. And I might label this fire, whatever you call it, chimney. Not light enough. want to go a little more orangey on these. Oh, it's at 80%, which is, that's okay. What I would do in here is I would add just variations. If you look at things like stone, brick, things like that, there's going to be variations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's take this. Let's see what kind of brush this is actually. I think it's okay. Oh, I've got a tonal wash. I'm going to get a more of a texture brush. So I'm going to go back into my grit brushes. Let's see what I can find. And I have to start doing dancing back and forth. This on a different layer. Oops. And even that's fine. I might just take that out using a selection because I want it to be. And then I'm going to go here. This is a little big. I want to get a lighter value in here. I just don't want to jump too far. Too much. And I'm also, yeah, a little more like that. Because then if I, and you understand what I'm doing, correct?
Yeah.
And I'm just basically building up texture. Because then once I do that, and I would build it out better than this, you get that.
Okay.
I would get a little bit of, I just look at brick. If you look at brick, it's got a little bit lighter ones, some that are a little bit darker and have a little bit of like almost going into like a charcoal color. But then once I do that, then I can go back and, maybe lay a perspective grid over it if you need to. And maybe find a nice, let's see what this does. If I go R, I can rotate my canvas. And I can start just to indicate a little bit of that mortar in there.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want to overdo that either. Okay. And you can even just lay something over it and let this other stuff live underneath it if you want, right?
Like the whole
Makes
thing
sense?
or the chimney?
The chimney.
Okay.
Okay, but the key when you're doing this kind of thing is what people do is they put in the bricks and then they try and go, or they put in all the lines and they try and paint between the lines. That's not how it works. You want a big wash of the variations in value and color and then work over it. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah.
And then I'm even going to come in here maybe, and I would just drop that in. And then what I'm doing is I'm constantly looking at this. If I go escape, it'll go back to regular. And see how we're starting to get a little more texture in there?
Yes.
Now, let's see if we can do this. And I'm doing these all in different layers. Let's go back to our filter, render. So about the tree. Because a lot of times, where's my tree? Oh, here it is. Let's see what else is in here. Oak tree, shrub. Let's try that. And I dial in the life, whatever you call it, the lighting and all that stuff. Come on, here we go. Oh, that's not bad. Let's just say that. Then I'm going to want to break up this ground with some landscaping, right?
Yeah. How can I make the landscaping less realistic, to match more?
Then you'd have to, I think in an architectural rendering like this, I think it's fine. That's up to you. You could build it yourself. right?
Okay. Okay.
What program was this in?
This is SketchUp.
What is SketchUp? How does that render this kind of thing?
I can do it, but it's gonna make my model lag, and it really doesn't look that well.
I think if you just go, here's the trick. I think it's the other way. I would go in and add some textural things over the building,
Okay.
soften a few things, and then the trees and everything are going to live in it a little better.
Is there some kind of layer you can put over the whole thing to make it kind of tie in together a little bit more?
You could, and by the way, the other thing I would do is I would dance textures and things over the house itself.
Dance textures?
Yeah, just like we're talking about with the chimney and all that kind of stuff. I'd start hitting it a little bit with some textures and things on another layer. So it starts to make it feel a little more like a natural rendering. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they're really hard edge. I might even break some of these edges a little bit. Like one thing I always talk about on these roofs, and you have to be careful with this when you're doing it from this kind of a program, but let me just get rid of this real quick. You know, these are overlaying each other. So if I break up this top, because these, whatever you call them, shingles are overlaying each other. So if I start breaking up edges and things like that, it's going to start making this look less just like an art, you know, like a SketchUp model. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all those hard edges. The reality of the real world is there's hard and soft edges, right? Anywhere I can break up an edge or break a silhouette or something like that, that's what I do. What I would do with this is I'd start adding some textures over this thing to give it a little more of a natural feel. Like, let's look at this real quick. And some of it I just hand do.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of it for me is like hand painting over it. Hang on. I'd look at this one because you like this one. Where is it? Shit, where'd it go? I just looked at it. Hang on. Maybe it's over here. Oh, maybe it's here. Like if you look at this, one of the things that's making, because this is a pretty hard rendering, the building, right?
We discovered it was a drawing. Remember you said?
No, I know, but it's a very hard architectural rendering, right?
Okay.
Now he's got a nice style and he's loosened it up a little bit. But what is changing here? Actually, he's not even breaking up these edges. He's got a lot of texture on here. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So one of the things you might want to do, and you can just do this to start, is probably how I would start actually. I would kind of start building it up the way I am. And then I would start going in here and going, where is it? And I'm just going to grab a random texture for this. Because I don't know if I have a perfect one.
Can you share the screen for the Photoshop?
There it is. You see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So look, he's also got just what I just said. He's got some variation up here. See that?
Yeah.
Because this rendering is almost as hard edge as the one you have.
Right.
You know? The thing that's changing it is the hang on, is the textures. Okay, so let's see if we can go. I'm just going to grab this and see what happens. Oops, got the wrong one. I'm just going to take a piece of this. Like, let's say this. Maybe I'll go in neutral with this, but let's see. What I can start to do is find a texture. some textures, I can start laying over this and start to texture it up a little bit. Does that make sense?
Make it look like it was on paper.
Yeah, give it a little more of a paper texture and a little bit of variation. Because that's what you're getting when you go in with traditional media.
Uh-huh.
You're getting variation. I don't like this. I don't think it's enough. Let's see if we can go. I'm going to neutralize it. Just go to this. I don't know if it has enough texture. I don't think it makes a big enough textural statement. So another thing I might do is go in here and go, make sure I find one big enough. And it's usually how I'll kind of start this thing is I'll throw some textures over to get it going. Because I've actually worked over things like this where I've had to kind of, where I wanted to just change them up because they're just not quite there for me. They're just too rigid.
Yeah, it's true.
So I'm trying to find a paper to, I'm just looking for textures basically. This one's pretty big. And I would start by just going, okay, what, and I might want to neutralize this. So just go here and drag it all the way, saturation all the way down. So I'm not picking up any color in there. And then just start seeing what I can do to kind of texture it up a little bit. So let's go. That's starting to add, yeah, that's actually adding some nice texture to it. Like there, you see it on the front of the house?
Yeah.
So this one's actually working pretty nice to get me started. And then I might start to dance it around a little bit. Then go, do I want it on the roof? That right there is starting to add some nice texture to it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it's sort, and then I'd make myself a little, I'd clip it out, go. And again, in this case, this is such a stark background. I might just be able to go. Let's see. And then let's go to the other paper texture. Let's go here. Gotta grab this again. Oh, I already had that shit. I should have saved it. I'm gonna do it on this one. And I'm just using the magic wand tool on this because it's so separated already. I'm not too worried about it. And then the other thing I would do before I got any further with this is I would go, what kind of background is that this is going to have, right?
Residential, but
I mean, is it going to have like, let's see, I'm just going to use this and I'll adjust it. Let's go way back here. Am I going to mix? I'm going to put a white layer here. Putting a white layer so it won't show through transparently. Oops. Oops. There. Now I'm going to put one above it. That's going to be, I could start my sky layer that way. Am I going to do a combination of, and then I want to adjust that. So one of the things I'd want to get established is the sky color.
okay.
I'm going to desaturate it a little bit. Because then I'm starting to get my colors put together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And then if I establish this, if I establish some textures on here, let's do this again. Let's go here. Back down to here. I want to get that selection again. Oh. And what I should do here, look, because I'm going to need that sky thing again, probably. So I should go here to select, save selection, sky. And now it's in there. So when I need it again, I can just go get it. Right?
Okay.
Okay, there we go. And basically, I would start to establish that. See how the textures softened it up quite a bit?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I see what you mean.
And then as I start populating this thing, I think there even might be a render thing in here. Oops. Yeah, that render clouds thing is weird. I never have that much luck with it, so screw that. Now, obviously I could go and paint in the clouds if I want. I can, I can go get clouds, whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for your help.
And then down here, now even down here, I might start going in and going, because you want to make artistic decisions here in my opinion. I might get my eraser now, soften it up, get a soft eraser. So I want this nice, where is it? Soft round. I'm going to pull down the opacity. And I want to get rid of some of this. Oops, I'm on the wrong layer. I've got this texture there. Got this texture here. And I don't want to get rid of all of it, because the more kind of textures I start piling on here in a smart way, like down here, I might get rid of some of it. And I go in and I, like here on the white, I might go back to my, and I'm going to get a little harder. I'm going to harden up this brush a little. Oops. Where's that? I'm going to just combine. I don't know if I can, but let's try it. I'm going to try and combine these. What is that on? Let's see what these are on. This is just on multiply. And I have to put it back on multiply. Okay, so now they're on the same layer, so make it a little easier. Then I can come in here and go, that's a little hard right there. So I get a soft, low opacity brush here, sort of dial that in a little bit. And then what I do is I go back up to my probably pretty, oops. I don't know if I want the texture too much on the white elements. It's also going to give me a little bit of contrast between all that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A little of that. I want to just dial it in a little bit. I can also, to your point, on this tree, let's see if we can do this. I can also, if I want to, just the way I am, because I just like messing with stuff. I might come in here again with a smudge brush, soften a little of that tree. I can knock out some of the leaves. That'll get it a little less realistic. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect.
And then I'm starting to go, so now I don't have so many leaves. By the way, you can dial it in with less leaves if you want. But I kind of like to smudge them out a little bit. That's a little too much, but I'd be a little more careful. And here, do the same thing here. If I take out some of these individual leaves, it's gonna exit being like quote unquote realistic.
Right.
Or overly realistic. And I can break some of these edges a little bit here. And I don't want it to get fuzzy. I'm getting a little fuzzy here, so I'd really manage that. I don't want it to be fuzzy. And then I get something back there, how my clouds, or maybe it's just down here. Maybe I put another layer here and go. Let's try this. Maybe go back to this and go, yeah, back here. Maybe dial in a little more warmth in there. Down towards the horizon, you'll get a little more warmth. That's good. It's not letting me download my color. Maybe I'll go a little lighter on there. Okay, so down towards the horizon, it gets a little warmer, a little dirtier. That's enough. You know, and then I'll figure out the clouds. I'll start populating it with a few more bushes. These wouldn't be like just end like that. I'd make sure that they end in the right way, these bushes.
Yeah.
You know, just stuff like that. But I'm first just going to kind of throw everything in there, get the lighting kind of figured out, get some tech. Look at how much difference the texture made.
I know. I really like that effect.
That's what you're getting when you want to emulate this. First thing you want to identify is he indicated, just like we did with the bricks, he indicated a few of these, just hit them a little bit, right? But what's really different is that there's variation a little bit in the color. Look at down here. Look at right up here under the eaves. See how it goes a little warm?
Yes.
Why does that matter? Because light, what people think is they go, that's an overhang, lights up here, that's going to get cool. It doesn't. There's light up here, it bounces off the ground, it's warm, and it pops up under the eaves and it warms them up.
That makes sense.
Okay? Those little kind of things are why this looks cool. Because it is a pretty hard rendering, right? And then if you want to go and do one more little trick on it, you might go, and that's too smudgy right there. I'd make sure that that's like, looks nice. You might want to go, if I can find a good brush in here. I want to go back to these. I'll put these up. These ones that I'm going to put up, they're called this one TGTS, which is it just means rusty nib. I forgot, rusty nib. But if you go down here, ink washes. This 80% one's pretty nice. And it's got a watercolor smudge, which is nice. You know, I could come in here and do exactly what he did right here with this, you know, and go, I'm going to knock in a few of these and then reshape them out. And he's got a little bit of yellow in there. It's a little hard, but I knock it down. I get a little more ochre, and I could pop in some, you know, that kind of stuff in here if I really wanted to do that. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Because if you look at this, these brush marks, you know, you just got to get the hang of it. They're pretty, I mean, they're just really loose. You know, there's no real, you know, he's just got a little indication of this here. The trick here is that you have to get used to doing that where you don't, right now it's a little smoky, where you don't, when people do trees or whatever, like a branch, they'll go, you know, they'll get a brown and then they get very rigid with it, you know, and trying to make it all perfect, where it's like, actually it works better if you're just sort of loose with it. And then the leaves are going to cover up some of it. I'm going to knock some of it back out again. Maybe I'm going to reshape it a little bit so it looks a little more realistic or whatever, or more, you know, brushy, right? If I wanted to do that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Does that answer that?
Yes. Thank you.
And I'll try and get this video up. And then, you know, if you're doing it along the way, send them to me.
Yeah, I will.
I like looking at stuff. It's fun to like just do an overlay or whatever. Yeah, see, look at that. That's just a wet into wet wash. That's all that is. And I know, like, if you're not used to doing that, it's like, you know, but the thing I'm trying to get you to do is loosen up your thinking, because people get like, oh, like this. It's not. It's like just real loose. He probably wet that down. Then he took a brush and he started knocking color into it, and it spreads nice. Then he grabs a little ochre and throws that in there while it's still wet. And they start intermingling and lets it dry. And then he throws a couple of leaves over it and he's out. That's literally it. It probably took him 10 minutes to do that whole foreground. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The texture, though, is one of the key things. You see that, right?
Yeah. No.
Texture. Okay. Two things that are the big key to what you're looking at: texture and a little bit of color shifting, because those programs tend to just go grass, boom, it's one green. Well, grass isn't like that.
Right.
And then, you know, whatever else it does that with. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, guys. What was I going to say? I want you guys to, let me get one more screen grab here. I want you guys to just play with the brush creation tools. I don't really care what you make. I just want to see that you're understanding it, and then you can come in on Monday and ask questions. Does that make sense?
Cool, yeah. Perfect.
I'm going to put this up, obviously. I'll put up the Paul Hussein video. I'm going to put up the brushes I just talked about. Jordan might want to use those. I'll try and get my grunt brush. I'm going to just try and get all my brushes up. You should be able to just double click them, and what they might do is just go, these are tool presets. Do you want me to load them as brushes? If it asks you that, just say yes. Because these used to be tool presets. They had to load as tool presets. They don't anymore. And then just try and, I'll try and make sure. The only thing I have to make sure of is that I'm just giving you one set at a time, because I have one set that's just a billion brushes, and I actually want to give them to you separated. Does that make sense? Like those rusty nib ones or whatever those are called. Those are, and those are ink brushes and all that. And watercolor brushes. Those are just one set. That's easy for me to put up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Okay. Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Everybody's good?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you guys.
All right.
I will let you go. I will shoot, hang on, one more thing. I'm gonna make sure that I got that. Stupid. I think I did actually.
So we're not really submitting nothing for Monday. We're just playing around with the.
Well, I want you to submit that. Yeah.
What are we submitting?
Whatever you do with those brushes.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's just textures. I want to make sure that you know how to use it directionally.
Mhm.
That's it. I don't expect you to make an image, but I want to see you creating brushes yourself. Does that make sense?
Okay. So
Yeah.
should we just like on like one Photoshop paper, just like put like a line of brushes that we did?
Yeah, you can go on and just play on there. I want to make sure that I'm looking at it and going, okay, that you're understanding how to do the directional thing, how to create a brush, from scratch, so on and so forth, right?
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
That's it. Give me a page, like 11 by 17 of just like you guys. I don't care how many pages you do, of you guys just playing with it. Okay. I don't want to put it into an illustration thing right now. You got to learn how to do this before you can do any of that stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, I'll let you go.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Feel better.
Bye.